Thanks for joining me on episode 365 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
I'm Shannon Miles from Belay. I challenge you to discover your calling and find your third option so you can be empowered to live every day to the fullest. One way to be inspired to do that is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship Podcast with my friend, Scott Mader.
Evaluate. Are you taking advantage of people? Are you taking advantage of people's good spirits and good heart? Are you ripping off the poor? Are you damaging or harming others with your service? If you are, stop doing it. But if you're not, then get brave and recognize that you can and should charge for your service.
Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world.
In today's episode about investing in others through stewarding your treasures, I talk with you about why the fear of charging for your services is foolish, why you need to learn to charge so that you can serve, and how your service comes from your strength.
As we talk about stewarding your treasures, wouldn't it be great if you could support this podcast and do it without costing yourself an extra dime? Turns out you can. All you have to do is use inspiredstewardship.com/Amazon when you're ready to make a purchase via Amazon, and a small commission will come back to support the show. If you enjoy the show when you're ready to buy from Amazon, just use inspiredstewardship.com/Amazon.
I work with a lot of small business owners, and one of the areas that almost inevitably comes up in coaching, especially when I'm working with them on getting better at stewarding their treasures, looking at their finances, is this area of, charging for your services and overcharging or undercharging, and what does that look like? It's an area where I spend a lot of time often having conversations with small business owners. And the reason why is because I think all of us have this fear sometimes of, especially Christians, that charging is somehow not spiritual, charging is somehow evil, that we're taking advantage of people, we're harming them in some way by charging them for our services. And that couldn't be further from the truth. If you look at the Bible, if you read it, it doesn't say anywhere in there that everything should be given away for free. Now, it does talk about living in community. It does talk about pooling resources and joining things together and sharing equally in many ways. It talks about giving to others freely. It talks about opening your heart, opening your mind, and caring for others. And that is something that we drive towards and move towards. It's something that we are called to do as Christians. But that doesn't mean that we don't ever charge for our services. It doesn't mean that we don't get paid for value that we provide. You can do both. You can serve out of an openness of spirit and heart and still charge for your services. One of the things that you've got to think about is, number one, are you charging a true fair price? Are you giving people more value than what they're paying for? Are you providing for people beyond just the bare minimum? Are you actually providing excellent service? Are you providing an excellent product? Are you giving beyond what you're charging? You've got to learn to not just charge, but to actually provide even more value than the cost that you're charging people. You've got to learn that when you look at someone and do tell them, this is the service I provide and this is how much it costs, that you can do that with the confidence that you're doing it out of a mindset of service, and that you know that the person is going to get more value than you ever charge them. You got to learn to charge so that you can build up your strength. because it's out of that strength that you can do service. It's out of that strength that you can look at someone and say, well, for you, I'll do this for free. For you, I'll do this for a discount. You get to choose that as a business owner. You get to serve out of your heart space by actually being able to charge as well. And you get to decide where that happens. As you're called by the Spirit of God, you can decide where that happens. It's only by building up your own strength that you are able to service others, that you are able to help others. The truth is out of weakness, we don't tend to be able to help others well. It's only when you've gotten a position of strength that you can truly help others. And by strength here, I don't mean you're better than anyone else. It doesn't mean that you've done something magical or that you've done something and you've been somehow better than others. Instead, it just means that God has blessed you with more. And so out of that more comes the need and the ability to serve even more, to help others even more, to provide even more value. It becomes a feedback loop where as you serve others well and get value provided for you, you begin to be blessed and brought up and built up and brought into more strength so that you can freely serve others even better, so that you can walk beside them on the journey and help them as you are called to do. The fear of charging holds you back from being able to do this. There is a limit to the number of people that you can serve for free before, again, it begins to drain your energy and your time and your efforts, and it begins to pull you away from really doing what you're called to do. It begins to cause you to have to go out and work and do other things that maybe you aren't called to do just to be able to eat. Instead, you need to focus on providing the value that you can provide even more than what you're charging with confidence. And if the market has given you the blessing of coming to you and asking for your services to such an extent that you just cannot serve anyone else, that it is a sign from the market that it's time to raise your prices, not because you want to take advantage of people, but because you want to be able to serve even more people. As you increase your prices, you will serve a certain number of people, but you will gain a firmer foundation and be able to continue to do that. And then out of that, you can free up the time and the energy and the money and the other resources to turn around and invest and bless others. So it becomes this neat symbiotic relationship where your work and your service work together, like we talked about yesterday. So I encourage you, if you are in small business, look at what you're charging. Evaluate. Are you taking advantage of people? Are you taking advantage of people's good spirits and good heart? Are you ripping off the poor? Are you damaging or harming others with your service? If you are, stop doing it. But if you're not, then get brave and recognize that you can and should charge for your service. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you like this episode on the stewardship of treasures, you can sign up for our treasures tips by going to inspiredstewardship.com/treasures or text in the U.S. 44222 treasures tips. And we'll send you 5 weeks of our best tips on stewarding your treasures. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.